Okay, thank you very much for joining. So today we're going to have our second lecture where we're going to understand the basic of CSS and the different style and how to integrate our CSS with our HTML file. So basically what we're going to look into, we're going to look at the type of CSS and the ways these can now be linked to our different type of HTML file, depending if we're working with just an index or we decide to create multiple documents. Also, we'll look into what we said about the styling. So there are different type of styling. And then we'll look into font and size, and we'll have a demonstration at the end of our session. Let's just have some key terminology. Let's look into some key terminology. So we introduced what CSS is yesterday. So we gave a brief introduction of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript put all together and what they do and how they work together in order for us to have our web page. So we then focus more on HTML. We looked into how these blocks are created. We looked into header, body, and footer. We saw how these blocks, how we can have internal blocks in our body. We looked into how this can be done through the use of sections or divisions. And then we did a small demonstration where with a boilerplate, we now created a heading 1 tag, and we looked into smaller tags like head 2, head 3, to all the way to 6. Then we added some images where we were able to resize them in order to suit in order for them to fit into our web page. And in today's session, using that image, we'll now look into giving some style. So this can be done through CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And we can see it is a language for describing the presentation of a web page, including colors, layout, and fonts. And this will now make our web page presentable and more user-friendly. So this will now going to define our UI, user interaction. And today we are going also to look into basics of this CSS. So we're just going to look into simple functions of them, like for example, adding comments or so on. And how do we integrate CSS into a HTML? So for us to integrate our CSS into our HTML web page, this has to be done using links. So we need to link them. So we will now have our opening and closing tag, which will now include either an internal style. We're either going to have internal style, embedded, or external. So we look at the difference of these three during this session. There is a small video which I want to share with you. Okay, just 1 second. Share audio.
Hi, I'm Oyendrila and I am an expert in full stack. In this video, we are going to talk about CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheet. CSS is used for adding style to an HTML page. Normally, HTML is the language that is understood by the browser, and we try to make the page more beautiful by adding CSS. There are three different types of CSS: inline, internal, and external. Let us look at the examples using Visual Studio Code. So this is how the editor looks like. This is VS Code or Visual Studio Code. I would try to create a new file, which would be a text file, and I would choose an extension here which says select a language, and I want it to be an HTML file because we are adding styles to an HTML file. So let us begin coding. So this is how a basic HTML file begins and ends with the HTML tags. Let us save this. I'm using a shortcut Control S in order to save my file, and I would give it a name, inline CSS. So my file is saved, and you can see the name of the file over here, right? Let us start with the body of my HTML file, and I will try to display a content, say welcome to CSS. I would save this and I would open it on a live server. The advantage of working with a live server is that whenever I make changes to my file, every time I save the file, I do not have to open the file again on the browser. It would automatically load the changes made to my file. So here you can see that this is my file name and this is welcome to CSS. But don't you think that this looks a little normal? Let us try to make the page more beautiful. Let us go back to Visual Studio Code, and inside body, let us add the attribute style. Give it a particular value, say text align. I want my text welcome to CSS to be aligned to the center. So let us choose text align and let us choose a value center. Let us also give some background color to my background, which says PG color. Let's pick up a very light color for ease of readability, and here we go. Let us save this and let us go back to our browser. This is my updated file with the updated background, and my text is displayed in the center of the page. Very simple, and this is how we implement inline CSS in an HTML file. Let us look at the second type of CSS file, which is internal CSS. I'll create a new file again, and it's going to be a text file. I'll select the language, say HTML, and I would start again. This is HTML and this is my closing tag. Alright, let us save this. File, save as. In case you are not fond of keyboard shortcuts, you could go to the file and then select this particular option, save as, and I would name it as internal CSS demo. Okay. Now the basic difference between an inline CSS and internal CSS is that I include the styles in the head tag of my HTML file. So I would mention the head tag here, and inside the head tag I would also mention the style tag. Alright, and let me add some content to it. So this is my body tag, and again welcome to CSS. Let us just try to change the font size and the appearance of the font here. So I would say font, and I would add the style here. Let me make it large, say 40 pixels, and let me also give it a color which is blue. Let us save this. Let us try to open it with the live server. Okay, so we don't see any styles applied here. Let us go back to our code. Since my content is inside the body tag, I would have to use the body tag here, and here instead of size I would just mention font size and the color. Let us save this. Okay, so the font size is enlarged and the color is changed to blue. One last example of CSS is external CSS, and we would just make a very small change in our existing file. What I would do is I would again go to file, create a new file, but select the language. I would select CSS here and I would save it using the same extension. I would save it using Ctrl S. Since I am fond of keyboard shortcuts, I would save it as external underscore CSS underscore demo. Okay. So the small change over here is just select this particular code. I am just doing a cut paste and I am pasting it inside my CSS file. Saving this, and another small change here would be deleting the style tag and including a link tag in order to link my external CSS file. Link, and I would tell my browser that hey, this is a style sheet that I am using to make my file look more beautiful, and I would give it the link of my external underscore CSS underscore demo dot CSS file. Do you see the suggestion? Guys, this happens whenever we are trying to store the file inside the same folder. Okay, right. Let us save this. Okay, and let us come back to the browser. I see the same output. Okay, that's all, guys. We'll learn some more concepts in the upcoming videos. Thank you.
Okay, so the video introduced the three types of CSS that are available, which are inline, embedded, and external. So what are the benefits of having this CSS? So the major benefit are that we now finally going to have a more responsive website. So the web page. So this web page will now have some features which will allow us to make it more responsible. One second, I just lost my presentation. This presentation on. Okay. Yeah. So as we saw from the video, there are three ways we can do internal, where we're going to define this one second, what is this presentation? Yeah, so let me try to maximize this. No, it doesn't maximize. Oh yeah. Okay, so let's get back to this. So once we have defined our index HTML page, we can now choose if we're going to make an internal or an embedded code. So with an internal one, we're going to add the code inside the line of the code. So we're going to declare what we want to have, the specific design for that line. while embedded will now go at the top of our, is going to be a style added into the header, and external will now be a separate file which is going to be linked to our HTML. So we have seen the steps that has to be followed. So step 1 has to be define our HTML structure with our HTML page. Then step 2, we need to choose, we could either have 3 of them, but as we said, the embedded one is going to overwrite our external, so this is not much recommended. And then obviously we can also add we can add internal to either embedded or external. That will not affect the file. Step 3, we have to link our CSS file to our HTML document through the simple use of the link tag, and this will now allow us to view this on the live server. And step 4, we have to be viewing our changes, so we need to ensure that we save and everything is working perfectly. So now our learning outcome 2, now our indicative content number 2, we're going to design and implement CSS style on HTML tags, and we'll now integrate our CSS into our HTML. So we have defined the 3 of them. We have defined how inline works. So here we have an example of how this has to be done. As we saw from the video, inline has to be done within our body or a specific section by having our opening tag with either our paragraph or our heading. Then we'll now define a style. We'll now give a specific font size, a background color, or so on. And then we have to ensure that we close our tag. So this is a pseudocode. This is how it has to be done for internal. Then we have external. No, excuse me, let me go back. So inline. Why is it not going back? What's wrong with this presentation? Yeah. So when I say internal, I also mean embedded style sheet. So embedded style sheet is the style that goes on the header. So in the header, we're going to define our family font, our background color, or the specific type of color we want for our divisions or headings. And here's the example. Lastly, we have external, which we're going to create an external file, and we're now going to save it with the CSS extension. And in this separate file, we can now ensure, we have to make sure we're referring to the blocks of our HTML file. So whenever we have opening bracket, we need to define where we're going to make these changes. So for example, if we're going to define our font family, our background color, we have to ensure that we're going to select the body when it comes for our opening brackets, and we have to ensure that we close it at the end. So this was pretty much where we need to know about the 3 types of CSS style. So we did have a file that we were looking into yesterday. Let me now open my VS Code. Yeah, so we did have VS Code opened up yesterday. So we had a boilerplate where we were playing around, and we were able to add images and paragraphs. So now what I'll do, I'll run this again on the live server. So there are different ways where we can run it. So here's the file. Yeah. So now let's start with our in style. Let's add some inline CSS. So we just simply going to add it inside there. How do we do this? We simply going to create, for example, let's define our background color for this HTML page. So we can do the here, maybe here. So we're now going to do style. No, not here. Why is it not loading back? I just had one here instead. Yeah, so we can choose now the color. We put light blue. And then now that we've defined the style of our paragraph, we say this. Hit the save button. And as you can see, we have now our internal CSS. Let me just change it to which should be more visible. Actually, yeah. So here we were able to add an internal CSS. So this is an example for internal. Let's get the one sorry, not internal, inline CSS. So this is an example for inline. While internal is the CSS that has to be added to the header. So that changes has to be done here. So as we saw from our presentation, we simply need to add it here. So what we'll do from here, we can simply add style. So what did we do before? We did H1. So H1 is style type. Text CSS. So we're now defining our text to have a specific color. So I want to give him head one. Oh, the head one has to have a specific color, and I want it to have color green, for example. Also, we can choose to have our paragraph. All our paragraph must have a font size of 14 pixels. Okay, now we hit the save button. And yes, so header one, which do not include this one here. So what happens if we delete this? So if we just hit the save button. Yeah. Okay, so what I did? I removed our inline CSS in order for our embedded or internal, depending on how you want to call it. I find it more easier to not get confused to call this as embedded CSS, because I get confused between inline and internal. So I call it embedded. So by removing our inline, now what happens in our embedded CSS will now affect everything. So you remember when I said what you do on your embedded will affect our external, but what we do on embedded does not affect inline. Does that make sense? Joshua? Hello?
Hello?
Hello,
sorry.
Josh. Are you understanding
Yes,
what I'm saying? Did you
yes, I
understand?
understand everything about what you're saying about the inline.
Yeah,
Excuse me 1 minute. I just need to quickly check something.
yeah.
Apologies for that.
No problem.
Okay.
So I just wanted to point out this difference to not get it confused, because if you create an inline CSS,
Yes,
that
inline
down
supposed to
would
be
not
like
be.
inline is
Yeah,
like everything's on just one line. It's no different from
yes,
like a
exactly,
scan
exactly.
that
So what
you
happens
showed me
here?
the other day,
Yeah,
yesterday. As for the embedded or internal, it's everything that's placed inside the head.
yes,
External, which I'm most commonly known for,
yes,
it makes the HTML file cleaner because everything's outside. It's
exactly,
only just
yes,
one line you need to add, which is the link tag.
yes. Let's do one. So we do style dot CSS. So now we have our CSS one. So let me get rid of this one, and I will just now create one of them. So the way we're going to link this is with the tag, as you said. So we have to be able to add this tag externally. So we'll now, for example, in our header, link this. Close. We hit the save button. Okay, so we now go onto here, and we can now easily add anything we want to add. So for instance, let's make our body. Body we say background color light blue. Yeah. Joshua?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
See, that was able to make the
Yes,
change.
you're able to change it by an
Yeah.
external CSS.
Yeah.
So essentially, learning outcome one it's not meant to have any CSS whatsoever when you're handing
No,
it in.
no, you mean yesterday's session?
Yes.
No, it was just an introduction of HTML, how to write paragraph, add images, like basically working with HTML. Today's
Ah,
session was more about looking at these three types of
Types of CSS.
CSS. So we saw in the
And
video how the lady did it, and yeah, and
yeah,
here's like a small demonstration of. So it's always recommended to have your external, where is, as you already know, you'll be looking more cleaner, so your code will be more readable, and it'll be easier for you to improve the design, the layout, choose any particular font or font size that you prefer for your web page. Yeah. So
okay.
it would be nice if for your assignment you're able to provide the CSS as well, instead of you adding the codes directly onto your HTML. That'll be like a bonus. So I think that's everything for today's session. I just wanted to know, do you have any question? Is there anything you wanted to know regarding the presentation?
Well, nothing really, because I understood quite a lot of everything. All that's needed to do is understand what other types of aspects of CSS you could implement, where not just color and font, like maybe how you position the boxes, like move the boxes around left, right, top to bottom, left, right, the background, how to
Or like a
implement basic.
proper layout, a responsive
Yes,
one.
yes. Now, what I'm just trying to understand more is
Yeah,
that I've been looking at there's only there's for this unit web design, there's eight learning outcomes, but there's only 7 assignments.
7 assignments.
Yes, I've been looking at the assignment briefing.
Oh, one
What I
second,
just
let me
want to
just.
know is
Yeah.
that how am I meant to submit these assignments? I want to get started little by little with assignment 1 because I don't know whether it's started now or does it
No,
truly start after all of the power?
after all of them. So it'll be next week, not from today, not from yesterday. So
Okay,
we do all the tutorials, and once you do the tutorials, then we have assignment discussion where you just ask me anything you need to know, and from that day you have 4 weeks. So it's not
to
from yesterday.
complete
Yes,
all 7.
yes, yes.
I see. Like it says here, practical assignment 1, basic HTML structure, tags, and basic CSS.
Yes, so it's basic. You
Um,
know, because you were talking about moving
Similar to
boxes.
what you just taught me here.
Yes, you're already looking at, maybe, for example, if we bring the web BBC, you know how BBC looks like. That's a complex website. That's not what you're required to do. Understand?
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
that's
I
wait,
understand.
let me bring
But when you say HTML basic structure, I know it's a web page, but um, can it just be like a whole entire layout of simple like um the the navigation bar, the body, then the footer, and that's it.
yes, that's what you're required to do from there.
Required to do. Okay.
Yes. So you see, like this BBC,
Okay.
for example, this is a complex one. You see how they're making the boxes. You see how it's structured, like the layout.
Yeah.
You're not
I
required
don't
to do
think
something. No, you don't
they're
have to
not.
do something like this. You see,
I
this,
see.
yeah. That, if you can do it, obviously that would be an extra, be a bonus. That shows that you truly understand HTML, CSS. You're able to create in like a really good responsive website. But as per the assignment brief, you're just required to complete the basic. So just creating a simple layout. So what
I
could be,
understand.
yeah, was simple layout.
Okay.
I don't know, just look at some website which you think has a very simple layout that you're able to make it look similar by just adding a bit of, by adding HTML, CSS, and maybe a bit of JavaScript, Maybe you can create like a login page, like a, you know, where you click for login, or maybe a subscribe button or something like that that will link you to the newsletter. Maybe there's a subscribe, you click on there and you ask you insert your email address. They can type the email address, and once they click submit, you just give like a tick, like thank you for subscribing. That 3 things will be good enough for you to achieve the unit. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Yes. Is there any other question?
No, not that I can think of.
Anyways, you can always reach out to me or ask me anything like in the following tutorials.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I will see you tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.